Welcome to the IJ4EU Podcast, where we discuss all things related to investigative journalism. I'm Timothy Large from the International Press Institute in Vienna, and it's great to be back on the airwaves after what is fair to describe as a bit of a hiatus. Now, for those who have listened before, you'll know that the IJ4EU Podcast is all about cross-border watchdog journalism in Europe. IPI and our partners at the European Journalism Centre and the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom run the IJ4EU Fund, which supports journalists all around Europe to collaborate on ambitious stories in the public interest. Today, we wanted to relaunch the podcast with a bang, and I think what we've got for you is a story that's going to be of interest to a lot of listeners. If nothing else, this is a world exclusive. We're going to take you behind the scenes of an investigation yet to be published and a documentary yet to be screened. And this is not an average piece of investigative journalism, although it does involve some staples of the genre: organized crime, bad guys aplenty, abuse, and exploitation. But this is primarily a story about dogs, man's best friend. More specifically, we're going to lift the lid on the illegal trade in puppies that's going on all around Europe at an unbelievable scale. And chances are, if you live in Europe, it's going on around you. This story is going to shock you. It's going to change the way you think about how we as a society, for want of a better phrase, procure puppies. So let's get to it. I'm delighted to be joined by two extraordinary journalists, the people behind The Real Puppy Game. That's the working title, at least, of an investigation that will hit your screens soon. One of those people is John Erik West, a Finnish freelance journalist and filmmaker with more than 25 years of experience in the investigative journalism business. So welcome, John. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you. It is absolutely a fantastic opportunity to talk about the ongoing investigation that we are doing together with Annick.
Fantastic. Well, that's the other person on the show, Annick, who's a Belgium-based freelance investigative journalist and a researcher with, more than 8 years of experience in the field. And welcome to you, Annick.
Thank you, Tim. Very nice to be here.
So let's get started. I'd like to begin by asking you to do something that I know is very difficult to do, given that you've been up to your ears in this story for months, if not years. But try to just give us the headline as briefly as you can. What is the main thrust of this investigation? What is the big reveal?
Most of these people, it's organized crime. As you say, there are nasty people, some of them who are organizing this puppy trade, and they are doing simultaneously many other things, of course, and there are like divisions sort of that are taking care of the dog import. And the main problem is here that we cannot be sure today's world where those puppies actually come from. They might come from various countries because there is constant movement between the countries and the locations, and then they are swapping the places so quickly that if somebody says that this puppy is definitely from Germany, it might be from Italy, or it might be from Romania, or it might be from outside the Europe.
Also, a very important focus of the story is the legislation that they have in the European Union, because the European Commission is supposed to have a look at the transport of animals for commercial purposes, which also involves puppies being traded to become pets. And also a remarkable thing that we found is that there's a lot of scientific proof that these transports do a lot of harm to the mental and physical health of the puppies, but that actually nobody seems to care. People don't realize what they're getting into because they buy these puppies. They don't realize where they're coming from, when in fact they are a bit traumatized due to the way that they are raised, but also due to the way that they are transported. And that's why also you have a lot of dogs that are mentally not fit to be pets. And this problem also increased during the pandemic, because people wanted to have puppies. So because the demand was high, these dogs were getting younger and younger when they went on the transport, which even caused more damage. So
yeah, this is all really interesting stuff. And it seems to me like there's a lot to unpack here. So I suggest, how does this sound to you? Maybe we could sort of break things down a little bit into bite-sized chunks. Maybe we could start by talking about the breeding farms or whatever you would call them, particularly in Eastern Europe where there seems to be a big problem. Then maybe after that, we can come back to the issue of transporting the puppies across borders.
Absolutely. That's a very good idea.
Which that involves a forced labor element, if I'm not incorrect, which is very interesting. Then maybe the impact on the dogs themselves. And what I find very interesting about your documentary is that you're going to really give the viewers an insight into the psychology and the experience of the dogs themselves as they are being transported. I'd love to hear more about that.
Exactly.
And then perhaps we could talk about some of the wider health implications and maybe the regulations if we have time. But just to kind of set the scene and to get going into this, I wanted to ask you something which relates to my own experience. And this might sort of give us a way into this topic a little bit. Because as you say, during the pandemic, a lot of people were getting dogs. And I had that experience myself. My partner and I, Jelena, decided we wanted to get a puppy. So we started looking for a puppy. I'm based in Austria. Jelena's from Croatia. So it was natural that we started looking online for, we did think about getting a rescue dog, but for various reasons we decided not to. We wanted a particular type of dog, a hypoallergenic dog that didn't shed fur. So we started looking online for, essentially advertisements to see breeders who might be able to provide us with a dog. And we ended up visiting a couple of places. One was in Croatia and one was in Slovenia. And they were very, very different experiences. The first one in Croatia, we went, and the second we got there, I had a very uneasy feeling. First of all, it was in the middle of winter. It was very cold, and yet the breeder in quotes, made us sit outside, didn't even take us in, sort of wheeled out this very sad-looking golden retriever who was heavily pregnant, who seemed to be sleeping in some kind of a shed or a barn outside in this kind of concrete yard. And everything about the thing just, it didn't feel right. I felt very uneasy. So needless to say, we didn't get a dog from that place. And then in contrast, we found a place in Slovenia where we went, and it was a very nice rural place. The person obviously was crazy about dogs, so much so that every time she has a litter, I mean, it is a business for her, but every time she has a litter, she would keep 2 or 3 of them because she couldn't bear to get rid of them. So she has about 100 dogs running around. The whole experience was just much nicer. So we ended up getting a dog from there, Daisy, who has now become something of the IPI office dog. She's not here now, but normally she's running around and barking at everybody and making it impossible to get any work done. But she's kind of our therapy dog. It worked out very well. But the question I have for you is, first of all, was I right, do you think, to be suspicious of that first place? Secondly, could that second place, which was so nice, actually have been dodgier than I thought? Could it have been a front or something? And then I forgot to mention, when we took the dog back across the border, and this was during COVID, this was at a time when they were still checking passports, vaccinations, all that stuff. The borders were kind of closed. So I expected there to be scrutiny, but we sailed through with this dog, Jelena and me, in a car. No one even blinked an eye, even though we had a very small puppy. And it made me think we would be the perfect kind of traffickers, if you like, of illegal puppies. So do we fit the description of the kinds of people who might, for one reason or another, become involved in this trade? Just what do you think about that, the kind of experience we had?
The honest answer is absolutely yes. Because first of all, there is a very thin line between so-called responsible breeder and like mass breeder, because they even have like families to pretend to be breeders and living with the dogs, and you come as a customer to have a look. Oh, there's a nice little family. Look, children playing with the dogs, and next week you go there, there's nothing, or there's another family with another dog. So for a customer protection issue, this is very, very, very hard to make the difference. Of course, people are always nice. They are like selling, take photos, come to visit. And that's a very good sign, at least, that they asked you to come to visit. And you could actually see at least that there is puppies and there might be the mother dog. But if you are unexperienced, how can you ever tell that if it's not like, because there was in one case in Lithuania, there was a tiny dog that normally gives birth for 2 puppies. That dog had 12 puppies when the families come to visit, and families there's lots of puppies, and they took all the puppies, and then definitely not from the same mother dog. And that the question about when you kind of are referred for the puppy mills or puppy factories, one has to remember that one dog can even be a puppy mill if it's constantly, in the heat and giving hormones to give a birth all the time. So there is of course, that's a term that needs to have a closer attention to. Of course, there are big farms sort of where there are even tens or even hundreds of mother dogs. That's possible, and that's not even illegal if there is veterinary has checked everything and it feels like certain requirements. So it's basically legal to have massive breeding center even, or a big kennel is the nicer name for that kind of activity. So there is but if you look at the animal welfare side, I don't know but I think you did the right thing, because if you feel that you don't feel comfortable when you are going to see the place or the puppies, the one thing is, of course, after you leave, should I report? Is it any point to report anywhere? Or normally these people might be even, if they are not acting normally, they might do something for you because they might have your information already because you have to keep some information for them, but necessarily they don't give anything to you. So they know something about you, even where you might live, and they might have your phone number. They might track your phone number. And it's very hard place for the customers, and the internet is another place where you can be blindsided easily. There's no guarantee of anything. So that's on the other hand, very dark world, but you have to try to find the light within. Annick, please add something if you have.
No, I think indeed it's just very difficult to tell if you are dealing with a responsible or irresponsible breeder, because the irresponsible ones know that there is more awareness, that people sometimes do their research and know that they should pay attention to certain things. So they do realize they should also make sure that the people wanting to buy the dogs don't get suspicious. And sometimes if they do, or if, like you described, the dog with the pregnant golden retriever who's living in this terrible place, sometimes it also works the other way around, that people feel sorry for the animal. And then they decide, okay, we want to buy a puppy here because we need to make sure that the puppies get away here, that we can give it a better life. So it's, on the one side, you have the buyers that are reacting like, oh, this is not a good place and we should go somewhere else. But you also have these people, they think they need to rescue these dogs. And that's also what you see here in Belgium. You have these pet shops. And I think a lot of people know that these dogs come from places that you don't want to see. But they buy them anyway because they feel like they are rescuing these dogs. And that's also what the breeders and the handlers are taking advantage of. They don't care if you want to have a dog and you don't know anything about the trade, or you buy the dog because you feel sorry for it and you want to rescue it. They earn money anyway. So
either way, yeah. I mean, I can see. So I can see there's a difference between breeders that are just good and breeders that are irresponsible and maybe unethical and bad. But what they're doing, is it illegal? And where is the organized crime in this? Because obviously they're bad breeders, but...
Yeah. And I was just about to say that even some so-called serious breeders, good breeders, they might be legitimate. They have a 1 litter each year, for example, but they have other dogs that they are, and they sold those puppies on the gray market because some of the people don't want to see the pedigree. They don't care about the papers. They just care about the puppy. But when it comes criminal activity, is like we're talking about puppies en masse. You know, they have a lot of puppies and they are selling it from 50 puppies each, like 20 euros. They sell it to the middleman who further sells it even to the breeders. So, and that's like the massive movement. And they don't pay taxes. That is the one reason that it makes already illegal. It's a direct cash flow to those people, and they don't respect they don't have a vaccination. Some of the puppies, they just smuggled in the puppies because they don't fulfill the minimum requirements, which is the 15 weeks of age of importing the dogs to a European Union country. Of course, when it's a third country import, there in the borders, there are a mandatory check by the custom people. They have to check each car coming over. But of course, if you are smuggling dogs, they might be under the seat, and that I think are the two main reasons that makes it three reasons that makes it illegal activity and criminal activity, because there is no nothing is done by the book, sort of.
Yes. Now you use the word smuggle, so let's be very clear about this. Are you saying that dogs? Okay, there's not having the paperwork, there's not having the appropriate vaccinations and so on. So is there a demand for dogs, or is the demand for dogs so great that there is a kind of business case or business model for people to cut every single corner and bring as many dogs as they possibly can from whatever conditions, in a sense, to deliver them to your door, almost mail order puppies? Is that where the smuggling comes in, and who's doing the smuggling? Because it must be quite a massive operation.
It is, and according to the information that we have now gathered, and there are various people of doing this. Some of the middlemen by themselves, or they have even families like you described. You two traveling with a nice little puppy, but of course, according to the legislation, person can import 5 dogs into the country without that concerning as a commercial activity. So you can basically have 5 puppies with you and claim that these are our dogs, and they have families traveling and crossing the borders. And then they have of course, like in what comes in the drugs and other criminal activity, they have fake cars or suspicious cars and people closing the border so that the people think, oh, there's something might wrong. And then there's a second car coming, or they have a corrupted policy that's calling, okay, we have this control point is now here open, go the other way around. So,
that's very interesting. So are you saying that the same people who are smuggling drugs, smuggling other forms of contraband, maybe guns, whatever, are also getting in on the dog smuggling trade?
Yeah, not necessarily the very same people, but there are it's like a criminal syndicate. It's like there is the top people who are organizing, and there are the soldiers doing certain things, but the money is flowing to one direction. That is, I think, Annick, correct me if I'm not right here, but there is physical evidence even for that there is the same people that are doing this.
Yeah, and actually the European Union knows all about this network that exists to smuggle puppies. But apparently it's as hard as preventing weapons and drugs from being smuggled. It's also difficult to stop puppies from being smuggled across borders.
Yes.
And the also an important thing is that normally puppies have to be 15 weeks old before they can cross borders. This is because it's only at this age that they are protected against rabies. So, which is a zoonotic disease, which can also kill people. But also the 15-week age is also a problem, because at that point, the puppies aren't as cute as when they are 8 weeks old. So breeders prefer to sell the dogs as little as possible, because then it's just easier to convince people to get this furry little thing into their homes. So that's also a reason why they don't respect the 15-week rule, because they just want to sell as soon as possible. And yeah, it's actually very sad.
Yes, because they don't have premises to keep the dogs till the 15 weeks, because they are purchasing the dogs either from the other middlemen or the collection centers, which are placed in the various cities in places in Europe. So that is the one reason they want to it's like any other goods that you are selling. You are picking up something and you deliver, and that's it.
So when people are looking online and they come across wonderful advertisements or wonderful websites of breeders and promising, pictures of the puppies that have just come in the latest litter, and, promising to bring them to your door in X number of weeks, how suspicious should we be of that? Are these fake advertisements? Are they?
I think most. Yeah, I think there are improvement, but I would say that at least according to my experience, almost half or the more are fake ads.
Almost half,
or even more. And one thing to be secure is to try to first to contact the local kennel clubs, because they normally have the registry of the breeders that have at least given their information and business details, and that is actually a place. But one other problem, there seems to be problems each time you have a solution. There's new problems occur, like here if you have noticed that this might be a good solid breeder and you confirm it from the kennel club. Happened in Norway that people stole images. They were interested in the breeder's puppies, and they stole the videos and images the original breeder sent, and then they put their own ad with the very same images and videos and gathered reservation fees, many thousand euros, and then they closed the accounts and disappeared. And that's why, because they are using, you can get free, you can buy the numbers from online. You don't have to use any more SIM cards or whatever. You have you can buy them, and you can have I can have Austrian phone number buying online and pretend to be, I'm located in Austria, and and I can say, okay, it's valid for 2 hours, this phone. And I receive a lot of calls and messages and even payments for the PayPal accounts, and I close it. And that's a sad, but I think there are a lot of, they're trying to be that, so that they have to be how you say in English, you have to prove your identity by looking by your banking accounts or details, to the strong, so that there is a real person that is placing this ad. But yet again, it's a jungle out there, honestly, and of course there is some various factors. Even the language might be very bad in the ads, so okay, this might be fraud, or you notice the same images from the various web pages from the various countries, or there is always one male and female puppy available. Such thing, how conveniently. So so these are those alarming kind of first things that you have to, okay, this is the red light, definitely.
I mean, you talked about this being maybe half or more of advertisements out there, which brings us to the scale of this. Can you put a number on how big this illegal trade is? A euro amount or a number of animals per year? Is it even possible to estimate?
Actually, very, very rough estimation. I calculated about the amounts of that, how many liters are registered each year in Europe. And I calculate there is an estimation from the EU level that 8 million or even more puppies are needed annually to fulfill the demand. And that official registered litters covered only 15-17% of that amount. So that might leave us up to 80% of the illegal. But that's estimations are a little bit tricky, because they might be 50, they might be even more. So but it's definitely a bigger amount, a huge amount of this traffic and the sale is based on the illegal activity at some point.
But even if it's 50, say, I mean, that's still presumably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dogs per year, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't know I mean, that's a vast amount. And in terms of coming back to the issue of people driving across borders and, family fronts, if you like, people like me and Jelena could be employed to do that. We would never do that, of course. But can you just talk a little bit more about who does that? Who gets involved in that? Why do they do it? Is it just for money? Do they know that they're breaking the law? Is there some coercion involved? Because they can't all be gangsters with something of this scale.
They are like, sorry, Annick, I'm just
sorry, Annick.
rushing here, but I mean, those are most of the case. They are people that some of them are forced to do so, or they have they owe money for those people. They have, or they just notice that, okay, this is a good, if the average salary is like 600 euros or 800 euros in a country, and then you notice you make 2-3 trips, you get 500 or 200 for each trip. You are starting to calculating that, hey, that's cash in my hand. It's, various people, but they are like people to be sacrificed, because if they get caught, that's their problem. They were driving the car, they were having the dogs, and they get the trouble. So that's, but I think not all of them are like, they don't even, they might be in a good faith, sort of. Okay, this is easy. Like you are telling, hey, I have one bag here, bringing it over to Germany. I don't have time to go there. So, hey, here's 2 puppies. Can we put it here? So.
Yeah, and you also notice that because people are more aware of the puppy trade, that they don't want to buy a dog anymore at these pet shops. So they go to families to buy a dog. But sometimes these families are also involved, that they agree to sell puppies from a certain breed. So they have female dog, male dog, and then a couple of puppies in the house. But in fact, these puppies also come from abroad. But these people, I don't know if they are actually aware of the things that they are getting into, because most of the times these are, people who are maybe not that well educated, maybe have money problems. So they see the selling of puppies as a way just to earn a bit of extra money. Like, sometimes people turn to, I don't know what, drug selling. And it's the same with puppy selling. Like, this is an opportunity for them to earn more money.
And this is kind of like safer way. If you get caught, you don't get like very hard sanctions. You might just you have to return with the dogs to the country of origin, or leave the dogs there and you can continue. There's no
there's a difference between
and if you have
smuggling drugs is quite different.
But one thing just occurred to my mind, which is very important actually, of the proof of that this is criminal activity, is that when the war in Ukraine started, there were people and organizations, they were like, as one of the specialists we interviewed told, they were Ukrainizing the dogs. That means that they were sending dogs and puppies to Ukraine and then brought them back to Europe as a pets or adoption dogs. And then because people felt sympathy for that, we have to save those dogs. And then they were
for example, I don't know, a breed dog is born in Hungary or in Slovenia. It's taken all the way to Ukraine and then brought all the way back as a Ukrainized dog.
And they got a Ukraine passports and documents. So, and they were like, in cases, one of the guy we interviewed said that they stopped with the Italian police, they stopped the tourist buses, and there were only Ukrainians, were the dogs on board. Even not the people were from the Ukraine. So
extraordinary.
And that's very nasty, very, very, very sad. I don't know And that was mainly because, for example, here in Finland as well, and many European countries, they let people coming from the Ukraine with their dogs when the war started, even though that's Ukraine is considered as high-risk rabies country. There was no guarantee or whatever, but now it changed a little bit. But that tells that this is organized crime because they reacted immediately, and they don't care about nothing more than like gaining their income.
Yes, they just keep reinventing themselves, taking advantage of certain situations just to sell puppies. So they would do anything just to keep the business going. It's actually fascinating to see how inventive they are actually.
Yeah, because actually this is a phenomenon. This is very, very well known in Finland because we share the border with Russia, and many dogs were coming from Russia or Belarus to Estonia, and those dogs were whitewashed there to be European dogs. So there's no basically border control when they're coming from the Estonia as Estonian dogs or European dogs, although the origin was in Russia or in Belarus or even from Ukraine. They circulated a lot of dogs, and or they transported a lot of dogs from Belarus to Lithuania, where, for example, to Vilnius, it's only from 35 kilometers to Belarus border. So there is a pressure, and then this whitewashing is quite a normal thing. What in quotes, what the criminals are doing. It doesn't have to be third country. It might be even from they are whitewashing Polish dog to be like Belgian dogs, or so that they look like it's born here. And Annick, you have to tell about what is one of the latest nasty things, that these heavily pregnant dogs that are imported. Could you please tell about
but maybe then I first have to tell about the traces system. This is what the European Union uses to track the transport of live animals across the European Union. So as John already mentioned, if you are traveling with 5 dogs, you don't have to use a traces system. But if you are traveling with more than 5 dogs, you need to register them in the traces system so that the European Union knows where all these dogs are going. But to avoid this, the traders in Eastern Europe now transport pregnant bitches to Western Europe. So it's just one dog they take with them. So they don't need to register it in trade. So nobody knows that this dog is going anywhere. And border control doesn't pay attention because they think like, oh, it's just a couple with one dog in the car. And once the dog arrives at the local breeder here, it gives birth to Belgian puppies. So, and that means if the puppies are born here, they can already be sold at 8 weeks instead of the 15 weeks if the puppies from Eastern Europe.
See.
So, and then the dog gives birth. She stays with pups a couple of weeks, and then she just goes back to where she came from, and it all starts over again. So it's actually quite bad.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Can I ask you how you? I mean, obviously you've found out about all of this, presumably by getting into infiltrating the bad guys, as it were. Did you manage to get people to speak to you and speak honestly about how this all works, and to what extent is this?
Yeah. Actually, good that you mentioned the word honestly, because that is something that is dead already. We don't know if they are like telling the story or telling from the bottom of the heart really how the things are, because they are also. I have a talk with at least 4 illegal transporters with previous investigation and with this ongoing investigation, and their talks are pretty much close to each other, and so I therefore I kind of trust what they are telling. Of course, they might tell me what I want to hear. I don't know that, but that's always a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But they have confirmed certain things and the methods of what they use. And one thing about the traces I have to mention, that also includes, because if there is an adoption, for example, dogs are imported to country, that is considered as a commercial activity. because the dogs are even further. And traces also requires that there's an official veterinary checking the animals that are about to go, the circumstances where the animals are supposed to be transported, and the documents. But in many cases, even with the breeders, because breeders also send dogs and their puppies abroad to other countries, in many cases, the official vets do not physically see the dogs that are going to be sent. They only want to see the papers. And that creates problem, even though everything is legitimate. But on that part, the veterinarians are doing a lousy job because they are not there. But if there is like livestock transportation ongoing, about to be sent, they are definitely there to look, because it's something that we consume, that we eat. And that therefore they are more interested in how the conditions of the transportation and what are the conditions of the animal. But when there is a pet transportation, it's very rare actually. And that is very alarming regarding to the disease pressure that might be included on those transportations. So as you can see now, there are like tons of aspects of very simple thing, that dog moving from place A to place B. And that, I have to say this about traces, one more thing. The problem of the traces is that it only tells where the dogs are coming from the point A, and where they are going to point B. But there is no, you don't have to tell if they continue from reaching the point B. So there is no information. We lose the track, or we don't know where they came from to the point A. So it's like basically okay, good system, but on the other hand, it's like
it's flawed,
vanishing in the air. It's nothing.
You mentioned diseases. Just tell us a little bit more about that. What is the risk here that with all of these sort of undocumented dogs and unvaccinated dogs crossing borders, that there could be an increase in rabies? What could the consequences of this be?
Well, yeah, I just, Annick, you can take the rabies, but there is when we're talking about puppies, there is called parvovirus, or just
parvovirus, yes.
Yes, and that is a virus that causes severe illness and even death in dogs, and it damages basically the lining of the guts, and it also attacks the infection fighting cells, so it's and weakens the dog's immune system. That's why they die eventually. And it's very highly contagious virus, and it can live for many years, even if it's like a family car, where you cannot probably clean it, or so that's the number one of the puppy. And the rabies, of course, it's very, because that is zoonotic disease. And Annick, you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, as I already mentioned, that a dog has to be 15 weeks old to be protected against rabies, because they get their first vaccination at 12 weeks, but then they have to wait another 3 weeks to be protected. And so that's why the European Union says that puppies can only travel from 15 weeks on to prevent rabies from coming or spreading all over Europe, because you have the Western European countries that has a rabies-free status. But in Eastern Europe, there are still countries that deal with rabies. And a lot of these countries are also the countries where puppies are bred. So if we keep importing puppies from these countries, which are too young, not vaccinated, that means that they are actually potentially putting animals that might carry the rabies virus on these transports towards Western Europe. And also with the war in Ukraine, as John mentioned, there was this brief period that people from Ukraine were allowed to take their pets. Although Ukraine is not a rabies-free country, they were allowed to travel with them. And that was also a bit of a concern. And now, especially seeing that the criminals use Ukraine to whitewash pets, we keep, or I think at this moment, that we are actually importing puppies from countries with rabies, the amount of puppies is higher than ever before. So, I think it's a potential danger, and a lot of countries have done a lot to eradicate rabies, but nobody seems to care about all these puppies coming into the country who might have rabies. So that's actually something. It's difficult to realize that this is not an important thing.
Yeah, and one thing I have. Sorry, Timothy. I have to say about when talking about those transportations, it might be that there are 3 different like pit stops, and they change the cars. So that might be the first car might be the clean, and the second car might be infected, and so if the third car is clean, it become infected. And one thing that is important to note is that some of those diseases, zoonotic diseases, are so-called biosecurity level 2, which is like you can handle. Rabies is that, but if the ventilation is poor or non-existent in the car, so that some of the biosecurity level 2, they become biosecurity level 3, and that comes also with the rabies. That's normally the level 2. But if it's unventilated car for a long time, it becomes number 3. And why that is crucial and dangerous, it's because in that way, whenever a pack of animals without ventilation are in the car, people can infect it by rabies simply by inhaling the contaminated air. So that's why the biorisk level, if it's on the tree, it's in the air. So rabies in the air. When for example, custom officer opens the door and inhales, and he might get. So, and that's something that should awake, I think, the politicians or
absolutely,
because this is a scary scenario.
I had no idea you could catch rabies, as it were, through the air. I thought you had to be
only if the ventilation is poor and for a certain time. So there is a possibility that it becomes the biosecurity level 3. So and that's very alarming. That's very alarming.
Yeah. Well, several questions spring to mind now. First of all, are some breeds of dogs more likely to be part of this illegal trade? So in other words, when people are thinking about dogs that they like to have, should they be aware of certain breeds, or are they all equal, as it were? And secondly, what should the authorities be doing? What does the law say, and what more can we do? Because obviously we have a very serious public health threat, if nothing else, never mind the experience for the dogs, which I'd like to get to in a minute, actually, from the dog's point of view. But yeah, so what about that?
Maybe those like top 3 dogs, all the breeds are like tiny companion dogs, like little Chihuahuas, Yorkshire Terriers, Westland Hind Terriers, those family dogs, sort of. I think that, and of course, from some part of the world, they are interesting to import those like unstuffed and pit bull type of dogs, fighting dogs type of dogs. Fighting dogs is, of course, a little bit generalizing the amount of the dog. But, those kind of dogs, I think it's companion dogs, definitely, because they are tiny puppies, and you can squeeze them under the seat or wherever you want to do.
And what should the authorities do? Is it a matter of treating dogs as they would livestock, for example? You mentioned that the checks are of a completely different order of magnitude for food that we eat rather than for companion animals.
Maybe there's, yes. Annick,
go ahead.
Please. Well, maybe for some reason they are not taken too seriously. Maybe they are not. Maybe this disease thing must be like better explained to people. Sorry, I'm starting. I have to take this is not vodka, it's only water.
You're a Finn, you'd be forgiven for having vodka.
Absolutely. Please, Annick, continue.
Well, the authorities have been trying to do a lot of things like border control, the traces system, local legislation. It never seems to work. So what maybe is a solution is make people more aware of the dog trade, but also make people more aware of what it feels like to have a dog, the responsibilities that come with it. Because you can buy a dog online, you can get it delivered to your house. It's just you have to click pay, and it's there. It's a living animal, and yeah, it's as long as people want to have puppies, this trade will just flourish. So I think it's also very important just to educate people, because they are also the ones who are keeping the trade going. And of course, you have these campaigns from the government and to make people aware, but yeah, they apparently don't seem to work. But yeah, I don't know. What can you do against the trade? It's it seems to be very hard. What can you do against the drugs and the weapon trade? It's also something that's just so under.
Actually, they try. Yeah, sorry, Annick.
No.
They tried in UK to get a legislation that the minimum age of imported dogs would be increased up to 6 months, but that failed at the parliament at the end for some reason. It looks that it was going that that might be one thing to increase the importation age. So nobody would want like 3-month-old or 6-month-old puppies anymore, but that would probably increase so-called backyard breeding in the countries of within. So there are many sides, and maybe the one problem is the free movement that we have in the European Union. So I talked with the border controls officials. They said they have to prioritize human trafficking, guns and drugs, and pets are okay. If we find dogs or smell dogs, okay, we had a call, but that's it. So it's less important, sort of, in the eyes of the decision makers and even the field workers. Of course, they know this and they are afraid of the diseases and they are worried. They sacrifice sort of their health every day there on the field.
One of the things I find very interesting about your investigation, and particularly the documentary that's going to come out soon, is that you try to, in a sense, take us into the world of the dogs themselves and show us what it's like for them. Could you just explain a little bit how you show the impact on the dogs themselves? I mean, how do you get in the mind of a dog? How do we know what they're feeling? And how do you present that in the documentary?
Yeah. Well, we don't actually know exactly how do dogs feel. Otherwise, we have to put them in the magnetic machines, and to teach them first to lie down for 10 minutes, and then we could monitor the brain activity. But we have managed to get into transportation. We have managed to put the cameras inside the car on the dog's level, so we can monitor how the dogs, the facial movements, and that, because that is something that we can then analyze and trying to understand how they are feeling. And of course, I'm building the soundscape a bit differently, because dogs hear 4 times better than us, so that I make it like a little bit different and louder, that soundscape. And so that is something that I try to understand the chaotic system and what's going on there within during the transportation, and even in the a place of origin, like in the breeding place, or if it's a good place or bad place. So I try to illustrate what I think that they are, how they are feeling, and what is their emotional state in each moments and of the
Interesting.
of the trade. Yeah. That is a challenge, but I am very positive that is something that I hope I can do it properly, so that let's say like average Joe on the street can feel and understand what a little puppy might go, what's going on in this little head.
And when can the average Joe expect to see the documentary? Any idea?
Well, as I told you before we started, I'm really hoping that I can finalize in January, and of course, it depends then who's willing to show it, But I'm very positive that because we are doing these articles as well, so that this is an issue that have to be taken, because this is, it's not very often that you hear about talking about the emotions of the puppies, or when they are transported, or how do these dogs actually feel about this, or what we are doing for them, or people are doing for them. So, and that's one thing. And you cannot highlight enough about the risks of the importation and movements of the dogs. I started to investigate even these emotions a long time ago, because I have a long history of adopting dogs from Spain to Finland, and we had an organization on helping and working with the local people, NGOs over there. So that is like when I always liking to watch dogs and think about what these little fellows are now thinking of, what's going on in their tiny little active brains. And it's very interesting. And we have specialists telling what actually scientifically is going on in the dog's brain, and as what is going in the human's brain. So there is it's not just our feelings and what we think about. So there is scientific background as well. So that we are more solid base here.
Well, we really look forward to seeing the documentary when it comes out, and of course seeing the articles, which I believe will be out sooner in the next few days or weeks even. So thank you both very much, Annick Hoos and John Erik West. It's been a really interesting and eye-opening conversation. I think a lot of people will, when they hear this, they might think twice about their plans to get a puppy. I hope it doesn't put them off entirely, but it really is an extraordinary story.
That thinking twice is a good start. As one veterinarian in UK has told me that, hey, people mind waiting toilet paper. Why not mind waiting of getting puppies? So give a time to yourself. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Any other words of advice to people who are now incredibly worried about the puppy they were going to get for Christmas?
Never get a puppy for Christmas.
They should... Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Puppies for life, not for Christmas,
also, if you prefer, some people prefer older dogs. There's an adoption is an option, of course. It's have to think about.
Yes, and in fact, is that the moral of the story, that the first port of call should be a refuge or what they used to call the dog pound for rescue dogs? Is that what people should do?
No, but I think it's a very normal and natural way to puppies, kind of like having a baby or something. It's very natural, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we have to think about these assistant dogs. You cannot take a refugee dog to the borders or for a track dog. You can't just get rid of the puppies. They will exist, but consider different options and what kind of dog is suitable for you, because it's not you cannot take big dog, or you have to do the research and do more research and ask people.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you both very much indeed. And best of luck as you finish up the stories and the editing of the documentary, which, as I say, we look forward greatly to seeing.
Thank you for having us.
All the best. And stay tuned for our next edition of the IJ4EU podcast, coming very soon to a streaming platform near you. Keep holding power to account. Thanks a lot.